Good evening, sir. This is the continuation of Pardia's report. Coordinating process. The coordination process of an organization is a complex understanding which involves the relationship among superiors, peers, and subordinates. This is a function of management which ensure that different departments and groups work in sync. Therefore, there is unity of action among the employees, groups, and departments. Unity of command. Unity of command refers to the arrangement of formal relationship in an organization where there is a chain of authority in which every member of the organization knows whom he should follow or to whom he should report and who report to whom. Means that there should only be direction given from one leader to the workers. For example, in the Philippines during the COVID era, the president ordered the imposition of lockdown. Therefore, all the sectors of the organization followed these orders. Number two is span of control. Span of control refers to the number of people of managers can effectively supervise, control, and manage. The more units in an organization an administrator must supervise, the harder it becomes to give etiquette and attention to all. It is the number of subordinates that can be managed effectively and efficiently by supervisor or managers in an organization. For example, an employee who reports their manager, then manager reports to a senior manager who then report to the vice president of the company who then reports to the chief executive officer of the company. Number three is the delegation of authority. Delegation of authority refers to the right to command and flows downward from top management. On the other hand, accountability is the implicit contract that subordinates accept to perform according to the institutional culture of the organization and flows upward to higher management. Delegation of authority, you can give one of your employees the power to make certain decisions so that you can focus on other work. For example, as a housekeeping supervisor, you could delegate authority to the one of the housekeeping staff to lead, manage, and supervise employees. Number four is the decentralization. Decentralization refers to the delegation of responsibility authority at the lowest level. It inclines toward competition and self-determination. Means that transfer of authority and responsibility for public function from the central government to subordinate or against independent government organization or private sector. The line staff relationship. Generally speaking, line connotes action while staff means advice. Line is hierarchical while staff is a collateral. Line is authority while staff is influence. Line of staff authority is the approach in which authorities managers establish goals and directives that are then fulfilled by staff and other workers. For example, in the manufacturing company, the manager set a goal to produce a number of products in a certain period, so the staff and workers will work on a time to fulfill these goals. Characteristic of organization. According to Bouchard 1979, an effective organization has the following characteristic. Number one is the entire organization, the important subparts, and individuals manage their work against the state goals and objectives. For example, in the production and under schedule, then the entire organization will work together to achieve the goals and objectives. Number two is communication literally and vertically are very clear and definitive. They share the relevant facts and necessary information. In the organization, it's a must to have clear and understandable communication. especially with the important information to avoid confusion and misinterpretation. Number three is the reward system is such that manager and supervisor are rewarded for short-term profit and production performance, growth and development of their subordinates, and for creating harmonious and bearable working groups. If the company has its good production and effort due in creating harmonious and valuable working groups as outcome managers and supervisor will be rewarded with a goal profit and production. Number four is the organization, which is an open system, relates itself with every member of the system and with the larger environment. For example, in our university, the authority relates to its constituent with the hard work and determination that also relates to the student as a larger scale of the environment and tends to the needs of organization. Um, Number five is there a shared value and management strategy to support it and try to help each member in the organization to maintain his integrity and develop his loyalty to enterprise. There is a value and a strategy to help the members of the organization, for example, in the company for the workers to be motivated. You have to tend to their needs and show recognition to their efforts in the company for them to develop trust and loyalty in the organization. Number six is the organization that it means operate in a action research way. The general the general practice is to build in feedback mechanism so that individuals and groups can learn from their own experience. Um, Action research way just like an evaluation of various companies towards the performance of their employees. So each of them will rate a feedback about the performance of their coworkers. To sum it up, their information is the basis of their for them to be able to determine what factors are needed for improvement and consistency. Tools and techniques of organization. A tool is anything used in doing certain phase of work for those certain result requiring some degree of accuracy and precision, while techniques is essentially a way of doing things, methods of accomplishing desired result. There are certain tools and techniques. The number one is the records. Records furnish useful information and provide for the continuity of operation. It is important especially in the hotel industry or any business sectors, as the records hold the data of all important information circulating around all the transaction, profit and growth are being recorded. Number two is the report. Report usually contain data and information about the operation of the organization. Um, it is the important because these reports might be a source of important feedback to enable a business to improve. For other example is the report of sales and marketing strategy. It's data containing the transaction of the organization. Organization chart. Every organization structure, even a poor one, can be charted for a chart and indicates how departments are tied together along principal lines of authority. Um, it serves as the blueprint of the organization structure. It indicates the level of management in an organization and to determine their work classification. Once a major conflict is an organization is that people do not understand their assigned and hosts of their co-workers. No matter how well conceived an organization structure, maybe people must understand it to make it work. In our organization, especially with your coworkers, it's important to understand the task given to the department of your coworkers. For example, your coworkers assigned was to produce a certain number of product in a certain time. You as a team of help, you have to cooperate with your coworkers and respect his assignment. Since a chart maps lines of decision-making authority, sometimes merely charting an organization can show inconsistencies and complexities and lead to their correction. Organization development. Organization development is a systematic, integrated, and planned approach to improve organizational effectiveness. It is designed to solve problems that requires operating efficiency at all levels. The problems may include lack of cooperation, excessive centralization, and poor communication. This is a process in an action-based research model designed to help the user understand known problems, set measurable goals, and implement change and analyze results. An organization development process is a situational approach of improving the organizational effectiveness. The process involves the steps shown figure. This is the example of model of the organizational development process. First, we have the problem identification, problem recognition, organizational diagnosis, development of change strategy, intervention, measurement and evaluation, and the feedback. Change and organizational development. The process of change may come from the environment. This may be external to the organization, from within the organization, or from the individual themselves. There are several things which are already occurring and will have implication for developing human resources. This is preparing the entire organization for new goals or a new digital business strategy. Number one is the increasing use of computers, especially microcomputers, requiring that every employee become computer literate. Many jobs require the use of computer in some form. For example, office work is mostly based around computer. Number two is the educational extent to adult life. Lifelong learning becomes a necessity. An educational institution and enterprise must recognize the special educational needs for adults. Adults' education is an integral part of the rights to education and lifelong learning and comprises all forms of education. The proportion of knowledge workers will increase and the need for skills workers will decrease. Hence, it will require more training in knowledge, conceptual, and design skill. This is need more improvement of your knowledge and skills to have a better work. Number four is the shift from manufacturing to service industries require retaining preparation for new positions. And number five is the choice of for educational opportunities increase. Many companies are already conducting their own training programs. Number six, internationalization will continue, and so different managers in different countries must learn to communicate and adapt to one another. Companies need to train their personnel with a global perspective. And there are various recommendations for respond to this process. One approach is simply to reach to a crisis. This, however, is not the most effective response. Another approach is to plan the change deliberately. This is a course of will require new objectives, policies, organizational rearrangement, or maybe change a leadership style and organizational culture. To react these factors, there are many recommendations. Simply reaching out to the crisis of the strategy, but this is not the best course of action. Other strategy is to consistently planned to the transformation of course. This calls for new goals. Relegation and organizational arrangement may be also called for shift in the organization culture and leadership approach. How to initiate change. Normally, organization may be a state of balance with process pushing change on one hand and process resisting change to maintain the status quo on the other. The failed for theory of Kurt Lewin expressed this phenomenon, which suggests that an equilibrium is maintained by driving force and restraining forces. Organization typically exists in a condition of equilibrium with forces promoting change on the one hand and focus attempting to maintain the state quo on the other. This was described by Kurt Lewin field for theory, which contains that opposing forces which together to keep an equilibrium in place. This is the example of moving an organizational equilibrium. First is the unfreeze, ensure that the employee are ready for change. Execute the extended change. The last one is the refreeze, ensure that the change becomes permanent. Normally, in an organization, a change is policy less resisted when those affected by the change directly participate in the decision making. The process involves three steps. Number one is the unfreezing, two is moving or changing, and three is the freezing. The unfreezing stage creates motivation for change. If employees feel uncomfortable with existing condition, they may be seen in the need for change. If employees feel uncomfortable with existing condition, they may be seen the need for change. The second stage is the change itself. This change may be through assimilation of new information, exposure to new concept, or development of the perspective. The third stage is rephrasing. This stabilizes the change. Change is to effective must be congruent with the audiovisual self-concept and values. If the change is not congruent with the attitude and values of others in the organization, change are the individuals will go back to his old behavior. There are many reasons why people resist change. Some of these are what is not known. Number one, what is not known or clear to them causes fear and apprehension and therefore induce resistance. An individual uncertain about its effects on his job. They experience worry about, and apprehension when something is unclear to them, which leads to resistance. A person unsure about how it may affect to his job. And number two is that people resist change because they are not informed about such change. Number three is that change may also result in a reduction or of benefits or loss of power. Organizational conflict. Conflict is a part of organizational life. They occur within the individuals, between individuals, or between the individual and the group. While conflict is generally perceived as counterproductive and dysfunctional, it can also be beneficial to the organization because it may cause an issue to be presented or studied. Organizational life entails conflict. It could be happen within the person, between people, or between the person and group. While conflict is typically seen as destructive and dysfunctional, the sources of conflict may stem from individuals who have different values and perception of issues and directly affect them. Conflict may arise between people and line and staff position, a manager's autocratic leadership detrimental or may cause conflict. Individuals who have different educational background may be sources of conflict. Poor communication can be a potential source of conflict. While there are various potential sources of conflict, they are managed in different ways. One approach is to focus on interpersonal relationship. Another is structural change. Avoidance of the situation that causes conflict is an example of an interpersonal approach. Smoothing is another way of coping with conflict. This approach is done by emphasizing the areas of agreement and common goals, though emphasizing the disagreement. Forcing is the third approach when the pushes his own view on others. This certainly will cause over resistance. A conventional way of coping with conflict is through compromise, agreeing in part with the other person view or demand. Another way of coping with conflict that relates to individual workers is to resign them in other organizational units. Tasks and work location can also be rearranged to change the attitude and behavior of individuals is indeed difficult. Thank you for listening. Thank you, sir. Good evening.